Hi, I'm Dixon Engel, and I'm coming to you from the Shooting Center at the American Police Hall of Fame. Today we're going to be talking about senior citizens and firearms. Now, I've actually heard some national experts who say that senior citizens should not be armed. Well, I am 50-something, and I can tell you that's balderdash. Now, obviously, if you have an issue with Alzheimer's, dementia, or any type of cognitive situation, that's a totally different deal. But if you are like most seniors and you're of sound mind and aging body, you have every right to protect yourself. Now, if you're a senior, you may have some issues that the younger folks don't necessarily have. So we're going to talk about those today and what you need to be aware of and what you need to think about before you purchase a firearm. Now, I am told that the second thing to go is vision. And I can attest to that. When I was 40, I started having to wear glasses constantly, and I hated it. But the glasses do help. So if you are over 40, over 50, or over 80, chances are you are not going to be able to see the white dots quite as well that are on most firearms. So if you are practice shooting and you use those dots, you're going to want to look for something like a tritium sight. The tritium sights glow in the dark, so if you're going to have your gun in your nightstand for low light, you are definitely going to want to have something that's going to glow. Bearing in mind that if you are shooting in a personal defense situation, you're not going to be using the sights at all. But for practice purposes, you want tritium sights, or you want the day glow or high-vis fiber optic sights, which are especially helpful if you're shooting outside because they kind of gather the light. The other concern that a lot of senior citizens have, and I can relate to this one completely, is weakness in the fingers or arthritis, joint problems. So you want to make sure before you buy a firearm that you are buying something that you can actually pull the trigger on. This is a good example. This is a double action only gun, which means you're always going to have a harder, longer trigger pull than you would with another firearm. I can barely pull that trigger. This is probably not something that I would pick for home defense simply because of the stiff trigger pull. So how do you know what kind of trigger pull? Well, you want to go to a gun shop. You want to try several firearms. I don't mean shoot them, I just mean ask the nice clerk for one and try pulling the trigger. You have to be able to pull the trigger if you want to be able to defend yourself. So the next thing we want to talk about is recoil and racking the slide. Back when I worked behind a gun counter, one of the things that we would typically do is if a senior citizen came in, or often a woman, we would point them toward the revolver. Why? Because a revolver is very simple to use. Don't have to worry about learning to load the magazine, just have to pop in your rounds, close the cylinder, and you're ready to go. Problem is, most revolvers are .38s or .357s, which means they're going to have a lot of recoil. If you have aging wrists, that's going to be difficult, and as I said a few minutes ago, if it's double action only, you're going to have a very stiff trigger pull. So, what if you are dead set on a revolver? If you are dead set on a revolver, the one I'm holding here might be a good one for you. This is a Ruger LCR 22 Magnum. The 22 Magnum is going to have nowhere near the recoil of a .38 or a .357. So if your issue is your wrists, this is going to be much gentler from a shooting standpoint. But again, going to have to try that trigger and make sure you can pull the trigger first. Now, if you're willing to consider a semi-automatic, I've got several here, and there are many, many more out there that are very, very usable. I have had people come up to me and say, I cannot learn to rack the slide on a semi-automatic, or my fingers won't allow me to do it, or my wrists. I'm telling you, there are models that are very, very simple to use. This is a SIG P238, a SIG P238. Very, very easy to rack. It's a 1911 style, and it has a manual safety on it. That's something you need to consider. You've got to know, if you've got a manual safety, you've got to practice knocking that safety down as you bring the gun up. It's one more thing you have to think about. But if your primary concern is the slide, very easy slide to rack. This is a Walther CCP. It's a 9mm, and the slide racks very easily. Walther PK380 is another excellent one. The PK380 is a lighter round. It's a 380, and again, the slide is very easy to rack. This is M&P's new 380 EZ by Smith & Wesson. This is probably one of the easiest slides to rack that I've run across. So try them out. Again, go to your gun shop, ask to try out different models, and remember, racking a slide is about technique. It is not about strength. You saw how I just did it. Remember that these serrations here are to grab hold of. You can do it like this. You can do it like this. What you don't want to do is get your hand over the ejection port, because if it snaps shut, guess what? You hurt some tender skin. So that's what you need to think about with regard to recoil and racking the slide. You may want to go with a lower caliber like 22 or 380. And I know people will tell you 22s are not personal defense guns. Well, guess what? The 22 in your hand is going to be way more important than the 38 up on your closet shelf. This is my personal carry gun, the Glock 19 Gen 5. Okay, the other thing we want to consider is price. Most senior citizens are on a fixed income and don't want to pay $1,000 for a firearm. Now, actually, nobody wants to pay $1,000 for a firearm, but that's what a lot of them cost. There are firearms out there that are very cost effective. What you want to look for is you want to look for an established brand. You want to look for a familiar name. The Glocks, the Walthers, Smith & Wessons, they all offer firearms under $500, sometimes under $400. So you want to try those first before you start going on the upward end of the money scale. So I would stick with the Walther PK 380s or the Smith & Wesson 380 EZs or the Walther CCP 9mm. They are all under $500. Now, on the utility end of the spectrum, I actually like the Kel-Tec P11. They're made right here in Florida, and I find it to be a very effective gun from a shooting standpoint, not a whole lot of recoil, and it is under $300. So you've got a wide selection of firearms to choose from out there. Choose wisely. My final thought for you today is something everyone needs to consider before purchasing a firearm, and that is safety. Not your safety, but the safety of those around you. If you're a grandparent and you have grandkids coming in and out of your house, if you have caregivers that come into your house regularly, you need to think about where you're going to put the gun. If there's grandkids involved, then you absolutely want to purchase a gun safe at the same time that you purchase the firearm. Now, with gun safes, you also have to consider dexterity. Are you going to be able to push the little buttons that need to be pushed? Are you going to be able to turn the combination? Are you going to be able to pop the lever? Make sure you can do that before you buy it. If you can't, then you want to look at a biometric safe. The biometric safes are very easy to use. You get your fingerprint registered in it, and all you do is slide your finger in and it pops open. And that way, only you can use that gun. And that's important if you got kids running around. Well, that's it for today. Those are the tips for senior shooters, and I appreciate you joining me here at the Shooting Center at the American Police Hall of Fame. Thank you.